Episode 11, The Unseen. The cave had become a living thing, a breathing entity with its own will. The shadows were no longer just shadows. They twisted and coiled like living tendrils, inching toward Evelyn as she backed away, eyes darting frantically around the cave. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The cave's entrance had vanished, sealed by the same forces she had unwittingly awakened. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They echoed off the walls, swirling around her, overlapping until they became a single deafening command. Release. Her heart hammered in her chest as she stumbled back toward the altar. She barely noticed the cold stone beneath her fingers as she braced herself against it. There was no way out, no escape from the prison she had found herself trapped in. The Hollow Man might have been contained, but this was something far worse. Evelyn's thoughts raced. She had followed her father's notes, performed the binding ritual, and everything had pointed to success. But now, staring at the dark tendrils creeping closer, she realized the horrifying truth. The ritual hadn't just bound the Hollow Man, it had disturbed something older, something that had been lying in wait beneath the surface for centuries. The cave was alive with it. A dark, ancient presence that watched her from the shadows. A sudden gust of cold wind whipped through the chamber, carrying with it the faintest scent of decay. It chilled Evelyn to the bone. She gripped the altar tighter, her eyes searching the dark corners of the cave. The whispers ebbed and flowed like a tide, sometimes loud and clear, other times faint and distant, but always present. Release. The word echoed in her mind, a relentless command that filled her with dread. Release what? The Hollow Man? Something else? Evelyn swallowed hard and glanced down at the altar. The runes were still etched into the stone, but they no longer held the same glow they had before. They were cold now, lifeless. Her father's notes hadn't prepared her for this. There was no mention of the whispers, no warning about the ancient force she had awakened. She felt a tug in her mind, like a presence trying to worm its way in. It wasn't the Hollow Man. This was something far more insidious. The presence wasn't just trying to escape the cave, it was trying to control her. Her breath caught in her throat. Was that what the curse truly was? A force that didn't just bind, but consumed? A force that demanded not just freedom, but a vessel? Evelyn stumbled back, clutching her head as the whispers grew louder, pushing against her thoughts, threatening to overwhelm her. She pressed her palms to her temples, trying to block out the sound, but it was useless. The voices were inside her now. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. Her mind was fracturing under the weight of the whispers, each one pulling her in a different direction, demanding obedience, demanding release. And then, amid the chaos, a single voice broke through. It was different from the others, clearer, more defined. It wasn't a whisper, but a firm, commanding presence. You are the key. Evelyn froze, her heart racing as the voice reverberated in her mind. She struggled to focus, to push through the fog of fear and confusion that clouded her thoughts. The voice came again, stronger this time. You are the key, Evelyn. Her pulse quickened. How did it know her name? She forced herself to breathe, to focus. Who are you? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of whispers still swirling around her. For a moment, the cave fell eerily silent. The shadows stopped moving, the air grew still, and in that silence, the voice answered. I am the first. The word sent a chill down Evelyn's spine. She had no idea what that meant, but she could feel the weight of them. This was no ordinary force, no simple spirit or curse. This was something primordial, something tied to the very fabric of the land itself. The shadows around her shifted again, this time receding slightly as if they were waiting for something. Evelyn could feel them watching her, anticipating her next move. You must release me, the voice said. I am bound here, just as you have bound the Hollow Man. But I am not your enemy. Evelyn clenched her fists, her mind reeling. How could she trust this voice? How could she trust anything in this cursed place? The voice seemed to sense her hesitation. I was bound long before the Hollow Man. I was here before your ancestors, before the village. I am not the darkness you fear. Then what are you? Evelyn asked, her voice shaking. I am the light that was extinguished. The force that kept the balance. The Hollow Man and those like him. They are a plague on this land. They thrive in the absence of what I am. Release me, and I will help you. Evelyn stood slowly, her legs trembling. She wanted to believe the voice, wanted to believe that there was a way out of this nightmare. But doubt gnawed at her. How can I trust you? She asked. The shadows shifted again, and the air grew heavy with an unseen presence. You have no other choice. Her stomach twisted at the words, but she knew the voice was right. The Hollow Man was bound, but for how long? And even if he was truly contained, there was something darker at play here, something ancient and powerful. Evelyn stepped closer to the altar, her hands hovering above the cold stone. The runes glowed faintly beneath her touch, but they no longer pulsed with life. She could feel the presence of the voice all around her, waiting, watching. What do I have to do? She whispered, her voice barely audible. The voice was calm, almost soothing. Complete the ritual. Open the seal. I will do the rest. Evelyn hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the runes. Every instinct told her to stop, to turn back, to find another way. But deep down, she knew there was no turning back. She had come too far. The darkness was closing in, and whatever was bound in this place was her only hope. With a deep breath, Evelyn placed her hand on the altar. The runes flared to life, glowing with an intense light that filled the cave. The shadows recoiled, hissing and retreating into the corners of the chamber. The air crackled with energy as the stone beneath her hand began to hum. And then, with a blinding flash, the seal broke. The cave erupted in light, and Evelyn was thrown back, her body hitting the ground hard. She gasped for air, her vision swimming as the force of the ritual overwhelmed her senses. But through the chaos, she felt it, the presence. It was no longer a whisper, no longer a distant voice. It was here, standing before her, taking form in the light. Evelyn blinked, struggling to see through the blinding glow. And then, as the light began to fade, she saw it. A figure, tall, radiant, and ancient, stood in the center of the cave. The first had been released. End of episode 11.